Hello and welcome to lesson number 9, where we'll talk about functions. You can think about functions as subprograms that can have their own name, can be called anytime, they can receive parameters, and they can also return values. Now, to work with functions, you must first declare a function, and you do that with the keyword function. Then you would give that function a name. So to give you a very simple example, let's say print to console. And then you would open parentheses, and in the parentheses you can specify a list of parameters that it can then pass on to the function. So let's, for example, say message here, and I'm gonna open curly brackets, and then inside you would put the code that's going to be executed by the function. Let's do, for example, console log message, right? So then what I can do is say print to console, and I can pass in hello, and that's going to print hello. Of course, this is redundant because console log can already do this. We don't need an extra function for that, but I just wanted to show like what you can do with that function. I can also do something like this. I can, for example, function add, and I can say value 1, value 2. I can do a console log of val1 plus val2, and in here I can pass, for example, I can say add 45 and 2, and that's going to print 47 to the console. As I was saying, functions can also return values. So, for example, instead of doing a console log here, I can simply return val1 plus val2. And then what I can do is say console log add 45 and 2. And that's going to print the exact same thing. So I'm basically saying console log, I'm calling this function, I'm passing in 45 and 2, and then I'm using the value that the function returns, and I'm going to print it to the console. So that's how functions work, really. It's very, very simple. Now, functions can also be declared like this. For example, let's do the square of a number. So we're going to say square equals function, and we're going to pass in a number, and then we're simply going to return number multiplied by number. So for example, if we say console log square 2, it's going to print out 4. Now, before we wrap things up with functions, I want to talk about something that I mentioned when we talked about variables, and that is variable scope. Back then I said that variable scope means the context in which that variable is available. And we have global variables and we have local variables. So now that we got to functions, I think this is a pretty good time to demonstrate that. So for example, let's say var x equals 3. Now this is defined in the global scope. It's not inside any kind of block quote. And that means the variable x is available anywhere. So, for example, if I say a function test, and I would simply do a console log of x, and then I call it, let me actually clean this up a little bit here, and then I call test, that's going to print 3. Now, let's say I have another function here, and we're going to call this test2. And let's declare a y variable in here that's going to be equal to 5. Well, if I'm going to go into test and I'm going to say console log y, it's going to tell me that y is not defined. But if I do the exact same test in the test2 function, let's uncomment this and let's call test2, it's going to give me 5. So the variable y is only available in the scope of this function. It's not available anywhere else, like the x variable, which is global. Also, let's do something like this. We're going to say var x equals 10. and we're going to do a console log of x here, and also a console log of x here. So first we're executing test, and we're doing a console log of x, and then we're doing a console log of x in the global scope. So now if we refresh, we have two values, 10 and 3. Even though the variable is called x, it has different values in different scopes. The global variable has the value of 3, and it's only available here, and this x variable has a value of 10. So this console log actually prints this one, not the global one. And that's a very quick introduction to functions. Now, as a web designer, probably one of the main things you'll be using JavaScript for is to manipulate the DOM, or the document object model, essentially your web page. And the easiest way to do that is with the help of selectors. That's what we'll be learning in the next lesson.